The Awakening. The air inside the ancient ruins was thick with dust and silence. Amelia Carter stepped forward cautiously, her flashlight cutting through the darkness. Her team had stopped outside, setting up camp, but she had gone ahead alone. Something about this place called to her. The ruins were older than anything she had ever seen before. Strange symbols covered the stone walls, their patterns glowing faintly as if whispering secrets lost in time. She adjusted the strap of her backpack and took another step. The sound of her boots echoed through the empty chamber. She wasn't afraid, but an uneasy feeling crawled up her spine. The deeper she went, the colder it became. Then she saw it. At the center of the chamber stood a stone pedestal. On top of it lay a small black metallic object, no bigger than her palm. It looked like a fragment of something much larger, but its design was unlike anything human-made. The metal shimmered under her flashlight, shifting colors as if it were alive. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. She reached for her radio. "Hey guys, I found something." Static. No response. Frowning, she tried again. "Team, do you copy?" More static. Strange. The radio had been working fine a few minutes ago. Maybe the thick walls were blocking the signal. She turned back to the object. It was impossible to resist. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and touched it. The moment her fingers made contact, everything changed. A jolt of energy shot up her arm, spreading like wildfire through her body. The air around her shimmered, the walls seemed to vibrate, and a deep humming sound filled the chamber. Amelia gasped, trying to pull her hand back, but she couldn't move. The object had locked her in place. It was as if unseen tendrils of energy were wrapping around her, holding her tight. Then the pain began. A burning sensation spread through her veins, starting from her fingertips and racing toward her heart. She gritted her teeth, dropping to her knees. Her vision blurred. It felt like something inside her was shifting, awakening. She looked down at her hand. Her skin, it was glowing. Strange golden symbols appeared on her arm, the same ones that covered the walls. They flickered and pulsed as if alive. Her breathing became ragged. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears. What was happening to her? The humming sound grew louder. The pedestal began to shake. The entire room trembled as if the ruins themselves were waking up. Amelia forced herself to move. With all her strength, she ripped her hand away from the object. The moment she did, the glow faded and the pain stopped. She stumbled back, gasping for breath. The object, now lifeless, sat on the pedestal as if nothing had happened. But something had happened to her. Her fingers still tingled with energy. Her muscles felt tighter, stronger. She felt different. A deep, inhuman growl echoed through the chamber. Amelia froze. She wasn't alone. Somewhere in the shadows, something moved. She spun around, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The stone walls stretched endlessly, their ancient symbols still pulsing faintly. But the sound hadn't come from the walls. It had come from behind her. She swallowed hard. "Hello." Her voice sounded strange, slightly distorted. Silence. Then, footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Amelia's stomach twisted. Her instincts screamed at her to run, but her feet wouldn't move. Her body felt frozen, trapped between fear and the strange energy still coursing through her veins. The footsteps stopped. A shadow shifted near the entrance. Amelia raised her flashlight, hands shaking. "Who's there?" No answer, but she could feel it watching her. Then suddenly, her radio crackled to life. "Amelia? Do you copy? Get out of there. Now." It was her teammate, Jackson. His voice was urgent, filled with something she didn't like. Fear. "Jackson," she whispered. I found something. I think it did something to me." "No time." Jackson's voice was sharp. "Something is in there with you. Run." The growl returned, this time closer. Amelia didn't wait to see what it was. She turned and ran. As she sprinted through the dark tunnels, she could still feel the symbols burning on her skin. Something inside her had changed, and whatever was in that chamber wasn't human. The ruins had awakened, and now something was hunting her. The transformation begins. Amelia's breath burned in her chest as she ran through the dark tunnels. The stone walls blurred past her, covered in those strange glowing symbols. Her boots slammed against the ground, each step echoing like a war drum. Behind her, something followed. Its footsteps were heavy, controlled, not hurried, but confident. It was hunting her. Amelia's fingers tightened around her flashlight. Her heart pounded so hard, she thought it might break her ribs. Whatever had happened in that chamber, it had awakened something. Something that now wanted her. Her radio crackled. "Amelia, where are you?" "Jackson," she gasped. "Something is chasing me." Static. Then his voice, low, serious. "Listen to me. Get to the surface. Now." She turned a sharp corner, her shoulder grazing the rough stone wall. The tunnel stretched ahead, opening into a larger chamber. Her boots skidded to a stop. Dead end. She spun around. The footsteps had stopped. Silence. The air was thick, heavy, charged. She could feel it pressing against her skin. Her flashlight flickered. Her fingers twitched. No, her entire arm twitched. A sudden heat pulsed through her veins, spreading to her chest, her legs, her entire body. She clenched her teeth. Her skin itched, her muscles tightened. It felt like something was pressing against her from the inside, trying to break free. Then, the growl. Low, deep, right outside the tunnel. Her breath hitched. A shadow moved at the entrance. Amelia raised her flashlight. The beam landed on something huge. Its skin was black like obsidian, shifting in the dim light. Its shoulders were broad, its limbs long and powerful. It had no visible eyes, only deep ridges where they should be. But she knew it could see her. It took a step forward. The symbols on the walls flared brighter. And then, so did the ones on her skin. A sharp jolt ran through her body. Her legs buckled. She gritted her teeth, gripping her head as a deep, burning sensation spread through her skull. Her bones shifted. Her muscles expanded. Every cell in her body was changing. She gasped. Her heartbeat was louder now, too loud, like a drum inside her chest. The creature stopped. Its head tilted slightly, as if recognizing something. Amelia's breathing came in ragged gasps. She felt it too. She wasn't just running anymore. She was becoming something else. A part of her, a part that had been dormant for centuries, was waking up. The air between them grew thick with tension. She could hear everything now. The soft scrape of the creature's claws on stone. The distant, rhythmic pulse of energy running through the ruins. And beneath it all, a voice. Not spoken, not human, but inside her mind. "You are not prey." Amelia's pulse spiked. "You are one of us." Her vision blurred, but not from exhaustion, from clarity. She saw flashes, memories that weren't hers. Warriors, tall, strong, glowing with the same ancient symbols that now burned beneath her skin. A great battle, a lost species, and then darkness. A deep, heavy silence, as if the entire world had gone to sleep. Until now. Until her. The creature took another step forward, lowering itself slightly. Not in attack. In recognition. Her breath shuddered. Every part of her screamed to run. But another part, a newer, stronger part, told her to stand her ground. Amelia lifted her head. She did not move. The creature stopped. For a long moment, neither of them did anything. They just stared. Then the growl changed, softened. Amelia's fingers curled into fists. She could still feel the heat inside her. Not pain, not fear. Power. Something deep inside had awakened. She wasn't sure what she had become, but she was about to find out. The hunter awakens. The silence between Amelia and the creature stretched. It wasn't attacking. Not yet. Her heartbeat had slowed. Steady now, controlled. She could feel her body adjusting, her senses sharpening in ways she didn't understand. The symbols on her arms pulsed in rhythm with something deep inside the ruins, something ancient. The creature exhaled, a low guttural sound vibrating through the chamber. It tilted its head slightly, as if waiting. And then it moved. Too fast. A blur of black rushing toward her. Amelia didn't think. She reacted. Her body moved on its own, dodging to the left, her feet light on the stone. The world around her slowed, details sharpening. The way the creature's muscles tensed before it struck. The faint ripple in the air as it lunged. Her instincts took over. She twisted, ducked, and countered, not as a human, but as something else. Her hand shot forward, fingers closing around the creature's wrist. A shockwave of energy erupted at the point of contact. The creature staggered. For the first time, it looked surprised. Amelia's chest heaved, her fingers still tingling with power. The symbols on her arms flared brighter. I don't know what's happening to me, she thought. But her body knew. She had never fought like this, never moved like this, but something inside her had. Something ancient, something powerful. The creature backed away, its posture changing, not aggressive, but calculating. Watching her, studying her. It wasn't hunting anymore. It was testing her. Amelia swallowed, keeping her stance firm. What are you? She whispered, barely recognizing her own voice. It had changed, deeper, steadier. The creature didn't answer, but she felt something. A strange pressure in the back of her mind, like an unspoken message. Not enemy, not prey. She sucked in a breath. It wasn't speaking, not with words. It was communicating, directly into her thoughts. Before she could process it, a new sound ripped through the ruins. A metallic shriek, loud, piercing. The creature's head snapped toward the tunnel. Then, without warning, it turned and ran. Amelia's instincts screamed at her. Something worse was coming. She sprinted after the creature. Her body felt weightless, faster than ever. Each step carried her further than it should. Her muscles didn't burn, didn't strain. She felt unstoppable. The tunnel twisted and turned, but she moved like she had lived here all her life. The walls pulsed with that same golden light, matching the glow in her veins. And then she saw it. A massive black door stood ahead, its surface engraved with ancient markings. The creature reached it first, slamming its clawed hand onto the stone. The symbols reacted, shifting, unlocking. Amelia skidded to a stop just as the door split open. Beyond it was darkness. The creature turned back to her, standing in the doorway. It waited. Amelia's breathing was steady now. Her fear was gone. She didn't understand what she was becoming, but she knew one thing. This was just the beginning. With one final glance behind her, she stepped through the door. The chase. The moment Amelia stepped through the door, the world changed. Darkness swallowed her whole. The air was different, thicker, charged with energy that made her skin tingle. The stone beneath her feet felt ancient, humming with power. Somewhere deep in the ruins, the pulsing glow from the symbols flickered like a dying heartbeat. The creature, the one that had been testing her, stood ahead, silent, watching. Then a sound, a deep metallic clang. The door behind her sealed shut. Amelia turned sharply, pressing her palm against the stone. No handle, no way out. A trap. Her breathing quickened, but something inside her remained calm. The old Amelia would have panicked, but now she could hear everything. Her own heartbeat, the low vibrations in the air, the distant movements beyond these walls. The creature growled, shifting its stance. Something was coming. Amelia's instincts kicked in. She wasn't supposed to stay. She was supposed to run. Without thinking, she moved. The creature bolted forward, and she followed. Their feet slammed against the stone. echoes bouncing in the massive corridor. The light from the ancient symbols cast eerie shadows along the walls, stretching like ghostly fingers. Amelia didn't know where they were going, but her body knew. Run. Run faster. Then she felt it. A presence. Something behind them. She risked a glance over her shoulder, and her stomach twisted. The shadows were moving. A dark mass poured into the tunnel like living smoke, twisting and stretching, forming limbs, long, jagged claws scraping against the stone. Eyes, hundreds of them, glowed like dying embers in the void. And then it screeched. Amelia nearly tripped. The sound wasn't just loud. It was inside her head, stabbing like needles into her skull. The creature ahead of her didn't stop. It only ran faster. So did she. The ground beneath them began to shift. Cracks split open along the path, glowing with the same golden energy now burning in her veins. It was reacting to her. No, she was reacting to it. The thing behind them was gaining. Amelia's muscles tensed, every fiber of her being screamed at her to move faster. But she was already at her limit. No, she wasn't. Not anymore. A surge of energy exploded in her legs. The next step she took, she launched. Faster than any human could move. She didn't just run. She vanished. The world blurred. The symbols on the walls turned into streaks of golden light. The air roared past her ears, and before she even realized it, she was ahead of the creature. She skidded to a stop as the corridor suddenly opened up. A massive chamber stretched before her. High ceilings, endless pillars carved with the same ancient symbols. In the center, a pedestal, and on it, another artifact. This one was different, larger, alive. The creature caught up beside her, stopping abruptly. But Amelia wasn't looking at it. She was staring at the thing floating above the pedestal. A shard of dark metal, twisting and shifting in the air like liquid. It pulsed, once, twice, matching the rhythm of her own heartbeat. It was calling her. The shadows behind them screamed. No time to think. She stepped forward. Her fingers reached for the artifact. And then, everything exploded. Light, power, a voice, ancient and terrible. You were never meant to wake. Amelia's world shattered. The truth unveiled. Light exploded around Amelia. It wasn't just bright. It was alive. A force that crawled under her skin, into her veins, into her very soul. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Her body floated above the ground, the ruins trembling beneath her. The shard, the strange, shifting piece of metal, hovered in front of her chest, spinning, warping, pulsing with the same rhythm as her heart. Then the voice came again. Low, deep, ancient. You were never meant to wake. Amelia's vision blurred. Suddenly, memories that weren't hers crashed into her mind. A war lost to time. Flashes. A city made of gold and obsidian, rising under twin suns. Towers reaching for the sky, pulsing with raw energy. Beings, not human, not alien, but something more, walking the streets. Warriors. She could feel their strength, their purpose. The same symbols that burned on her skin covered their bodies. Then, fire. A sky tearing open. Creatures pouring through. A darkness without form, without mercy. The same ones chasing her now. The warriors fought, their bodies glowing like stars. They struck back, held the line, but they were outnumbered. One by one, they fell, until only a handful remained, until they made a choice, a desperate final act. They sealed themselves away, not dead, but not alive. Waiting, waiting for the one who would awaken them. Waiting for her. Reality shatters. Amelia gasped, tumbling back into her body. Her feet slammed onto the stone floor, her breath ragged. The hovering shard rushed toward her. She had no time to react. It pierced her chest. Not cutting, merging. She let out a scream as pure energy flooded her veins. Her muscles locked, her bones burned. And then, she stood. No pain, no weakness. She felt whole. Her hands curled into fists. Her skin still glowed, but now it was controlled. The energy no longer fought against her. It was hers. The creature beside her, her silent guide, took a step back. It bowed its head lower. Respect. Because she was no longer prey, no longer human. She was one of them. The last of the lost warriors. The enemy approaches. A distant sound rumbled through the ruins. The darkness hadn't left. It was still coming. But now, Amelia wasn't afraid. She turned toward the entrance, her golden eyes burning bright. The hunt had changed. Now she was the predator. The final confrontation. The ground shook. A deep, pulsing vibration rolled through the ruins like a heartbeat. The air turned dense, thick with static energy, as if the very walls of this ancient place were waking up. Amelia stood taller. Her body felt different, stronger, faster, more alive than ever before. The symbols on her skin no longer just glowed. They hummed, pulsed, whispered secrets into her mind. They were speaking to her, guiding her, her silent companion. The creature who had once hunted her stood still, watching. It had tested her, pushed her, but now it waited, because she wasn't running anymore. She was ready. Then the shadows moved. The darkness poured into the chamber like a living storm. Limbs twisted, stretched, formed jagged claws, and too many eyes. The very walls groaned under its presence. It was bigger now, stronger. It had felt her awakening, and it had come to end her. A voice slithered through the air, not spoken, but pressed into her mind. You are not them. You are broken, incomplete. Amelia smirked. No, she whispered. I'm more than them. The shadows struck. A spear of black tendrils shot toward her, fast as lightning, twisting like liquid knives. But Amelia moved, not with fear, not with panic, with precision. Her body blurred, vanishing in a golden flash. 1 second, she stood before the creature. The next, she was behind it. The shadow barely had time to react before she struck. Her fist, coated in raw golden energy, drove into its shifting form. A blast of power erupted, tearing through the darkness. The creature screeched, twisting violently as its body cracked apart. But it didn't die. It adapted. The torn pieces of shadow merged, reforming into something new, something armored, something monstrous. It learned. But so had she. The creature lunged again. Amelia ducked, spun, countered. Her body moved like she'd trained for this her entire life. But she hadn't. Had she? Flashes of memories, ones that weren't hers, flooded her mind. Warriors like her, moving in perfect unison, their golden energy cutting through the dark like fire through ice. She was one of them. No, she was their last hope. She gritted her teeth and attacked. Her energy flared around her arms, forging weapons from pure light. Twin blades, curved like ancient war tools. She charged. The fight became a dance. Light and shadow collided, her strikes cutting through its formless body, its tendrils snapping at her like whips. The chamber shook with each blow. Stone crumbled. Symbols flickered. The ancient ruins were collapsing. She had to finish this. The creature lunged for a final, desperate strike, its form stretching, twisting, pulling into something even larger. It was betting everything on this last attack. So was she. Amelia leaped, higher than any human could. She flipped midair, golden energy surging through her legs, and as she came down, she struck. Her twin blades sank deep into the creature's core. Light erupted. The creature screamed, a final, piercing shriek before it shattered into nothing. Silence. The dust settled. The golden glow dimmed. Amelia stood victorious. Her hands trembled. not from fear, not from exhaustion, from power. She looked down at her arms. The symbols had stopped glowing, but she could still feel them, still feel what she had become. She turned. The creature that had once hunted her, the one that had guided her, knelt. A silent gesture, recognition, respect. She was no longer an outsider. She was their leader. She was the last warrior. But before she could process what that truly meant, the ruins trembled again. Not from battle, from something else. Something waking up. The evolution. The ruins trembled beneath Amelia's feet. Not from destruction, not from battle, from something else. A deeper pulse. A slow, rhythmic heartbeat vibrating through the stone. The ancient walls, once dormant, shifted. Symbols that had once flickered with fading light now burned with intensity. The air itself became heavy, pressing down on her like an invisible force. Something wasn't just waking up. It was rising. Amelia stood at the center of it all, her chest still heaving from the battle, golden energy still humming beneath her skin. She was different now. Not human, not alien. Something more. The creature beside her, the one that had once hunted her, then followed her, stood still, its head tilted slightly, as if listening, waiting. Amelia felt it too. A presence. Ancient, powerful, and aware. Then the voice came. You are the first, but not the last. Her pulse spiked. This voice wasn't like the others. It wasn't like the shadows that had tried to consume her. It wasn't like the whispers in her head when she first touched the artifact. This was something greater. She turned, scanning the shifting chamber. The energy in the room began to gather, twisting into a vortex at the center of the ruins. The stone cracked and fell away, revealing a deep chasm below. And from within the darkness, they emerge. Figures. Tall, cloaked in energy. Their forms were blurred, shifting between flesh and light. But their eyes, golden like hers. Warriors. Not dead. Not gone. Sleeping. Waiting. For her. The realization struck Amelia like a tidal wave. She wasn't just one of them. She was their key. Their awakening. The ruins weren't a tomb. They were a cocoon. And now, she had broken it open. The last test. One of the glowing figures stepped forward. His voice, though not spoken aloud, resonated inside her skull. You have begun the cycle again. She swallowed. What cycle? The figure tilted its head. The hunt. A flash. Images poured into her mind. Their people had not been destroyed. They had sealed themselves away. The war against the shadow creatures was never truly over. The darkness could never be killed. It could only be contained, until the next warrior was chosen, until they were strong enough to finish it. Until there, the ground beneath her shook harder. The symbols burned brighter. And Amelia understood. This wasn't just about her. It was about them. About all of them. The lost warriors had been waiting for someone to unlock them, to lead them, to finish what had begun eons ago. She clenched her fists. Golden energy surged around her body. She looked at the shadowed chasm below, the abyss where the creatures had been trapped for centuries. The seal was breaking. The war wasn't coming. It had already begun. Amelia turned to the glowing warriors, her people, and took a deep breath. You waited for me. She raised her hand. Then fight with me. A pause. Then they bowed. The chamber exploded with golden light as the warriors awoke. Their bodies solidified, their energy weapons forming in their hands. The ruins around them shifted, breaking apart, revealing the true battlefield beneath. A war that had been frozen in time was about to continue. Amelia stepped forward, not as a survivor, not as a victim, but as a leader, as the last warrior reborn. And this time, the darkness wouldn't win. This time, the hunt would end. Forever.